4 years. That is how long he avoided speaking English in public. Not because he did not understand the language, but because he was afraid of making mistakes. But one small habit slowly changed everything. Welcome back to the channel. Many people believe learning English is only about grammar, vocabulary, and memorizing rules. But the real challenge often happens inside the mind. Fear of judgment, embarrassment, and past experiences can stop someone from speaking even when they understand the language well. Today I want to share the story of George, a young professional who stayed silent in English conversations for 4 years. Not because he lacked knowledge, but because one uncomfortable moment damaged his confidence. This story is not only about language. It is about confidence, courage, and the small decision that can slowly rebuild a person from the inside. When confidence slowly disappeared. George was always good at understanding English. In school he could read lessons easily, follow explanations, and complete written assignments with confidence. Teachers often appreciated his work because he clearly understood the concepts. However, speaking in English felt very different for him. Whenever he tried to express his thoughts aloud, he became nervous. His mind started checking every word and every sentence before he spoke. One day during a class discussion, the teacher asked George to explain an answer in English. He took a deep breath and started speaking slowly. He was thinking carefully about each word and trying to form a correct sentence. His sentence was not perfect, and his pronunciation sounded uncertain. A few students in the classroom began laughing quietly. For them it was only a small reaction, but for George the moment felt very uncomfortable. The laughter echoed in his mind long after the class finished. While other students moved on quickly, George kept replaying the moment again and again in his thoughts. From that day forward, something inside him changed. Instead of raising his hand in class, he chose to stay quiet. Instead of practicing speaking, he preferred listening. Silence started feeling safer than making another mistake in front of others. Every time he thought about speaking, the memory of that classroom moment returned and made him hesitate. When George entered college, the pattern continued. During presentations he kept his explanations very short. In group discussions he allowed others to lead the conversation. Even when he knew the answer, he often decided not to speak. Inside his mind he could clearly form sentences and ideas, yet the fear of judgment stopped those words from coming out. After graduation, George started his first job in a professional environment where English communication was common. Meetings, discussions, and presentations happened regularly. George understood almost everything being discussed. Ideas formed quickly in his mind, and many times he had valuable thoughts to share. But when the moment came to speak, hesitation appeared immediately. His confidence felt fragile, and he worried that people might judge his mistakes. Days turned into months, and months slowly turned into years. 4 years passed in this quiet pattern where George listened carefully, understood clearly, but rarely spoke. Over time he started believing something dangerous. He began thinking that maybe he was simply not someone who could speak English confidently. And that belief slowly became the silent wall that kept him from growing. The moment that changed his thinking. 4 years passed with George staying mostly silent in English conversations. He had become very comfortable listening and understanding, but speaking still felt intimidating. At work he attended meetings regularly, took notes carefully, and understood every discussion happening around him. One afternoon during a team meeting, his manager asked a question about a project problem. George immediately knew the solution because he had been working on that task for several days. The idea was clear in his mind. He wanted to speak, but the familiar hesitation appeared again. His heart started beating faster, and the same old fear returned. What if his sentence sounded wrong? What if people noticed his mistakes? So he stayed quiet. A few seconds later, another colleague suggested a solution. It was almost exactly the same idea George had in his mind. The manager appreciated the suggestion and the team moved forward with that plan. George sat there silently, realizing something important. The idea he had was valuable, yet his fear had prevented him from sharing it. That moment created a strong feeling inside him. It was not embarrassment like the classroom moment years earlier. This time it felt like regret. Later that evening, George was thinking about the meeting again. He understood that his problem was not lack of knowledge. He already knew enough English to express simple ideas. The real problem was the habit of silence he had built over the years. For the first time, George asked himself a different question. Instead of thinking, "What if I make a mistake?" he started thinking, "What if I never try?" That small shift in thinking became the beginning of a new decision. George realized that waiting for perfect English would keep him silent forever. So, he made a simple promise to himself. He would start practicing speaking a little every day, even if his sentences were not perfect. It was not a dramatic decision, and nothing changed overnight. But that quiet promise became the first step toward breaking the 4 years of silence. The small habit that changed everything. The next morning, George decided to begin with something very simple. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment to speak in meetings, he started practicing alone for a few minutes every day. Every evening after work, he opened his phone recorder and spoke about his day in English. He described what he did at work, what problems he solved, and what he planned for the next day. At first it felt strange and uncomfortable. His sentences were slow, and sometimes he paused because he could not find the right word. But this time he did not stop himself. He allowed the mistakes to happen. After recording, George listened to his own voice. He noticed small problems in pronunciation and sentence structure, but he also realized something encouraging. His ideas were clear and understandable. Day by day, this small habit started building familiarity with speaking. English slowly stopped feeling like a performance and started feeling like a normal way to express his thoughts. After a few weeks, George decided to take the next step. During meetings, he forced himself to speak at least one short sentence. It did not need to be perfect. Sometimes it was only a simple suggestion or a small comment. The first time he spoke, his voice felt slightly shaky. But something surprising happened. Nobody laughed. Nobody criticized his sentence. People simply listened and continued the conversation. That moment gave George a quiet sense of relief. The fear he had carried for 4 years began to look smaller than he had imagined. Weeks turned into months, and his habit continued. Speaking for a few minutes every day slowly strengthened his confidence. His sentences became clearer, his pauses became shorter, and his hesitation slowly started fading. For the first time in years, George felt that speaking English was becoming natural instead of stressful. A small daily habit had begun breaking the silence that had controlled his life for 4 years. When silence turned into confidence. Months passed, and George continued practicing his small speaking habit every single day. What started as a few minutes of recording on his phone slowly turned into a powerful routine that strengthened his confidence. His thoughts started flowing more naturally in English. Instead of searching for perfect sentences, he focused on expressing his ideas clearly. Speaking no longer felt like a test. It began to feel like normal communication. One day during a team meeting, his manager asked the group for suggestions on improving a project workflow. This time George did not wait for someone else to speak first. He shared his idea calmly and explained his reasoning step by step. His voice was steady, and his message was clear. The room stayed quiet while people listened. When he finished speaking, the manager nodded and appreciated the suggestion. The team discussed his idea and decided to apply it to the project. In that moment, George felt something he had not experienced for years. It was not pride or excitement. It was confidence. The same person who stayed silent for 4 years was now speaking comfortably in front of colleagues. His knowledge had always been there, but his confidence finally caught up with it. George realized an important truth. Confidence does not appear suddenly. It grows slowly through small actions repeated every day. A few minutes of daily speaking practice had completely changed the way he saw himself. And the silence that once controlled his life had finally disappeared. George's story shows something very important. His problem was never a lack of knowledge. The real challenge was the fear that slowly built inside his mind after one uncomfortable moment. For 4 years he believed that staying silent was safer than risking mistakes. But the moment he started speaking a little every day, everything began to change. Confidence did not arrive suddenly. It grew step by step through a small daily habit that anyone can start. If George could break 4 years of silence with a few minutes of practice every day, imagine what consistent effort can do for you. If this story inspired you, make sure to like the video. Comment below and tell me what fear has been stopping you from speaking English. Share this video with someone who understands English but feels afraid to speak. Subscribe to the channel for more practical videos that help you speak English with confidence. Turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next lesson. Thank you for watching and spending your valuable time here. I truly appreciate your support, and I will see you in the next video.